So the commission met and they worked through November of last year and crafted 3 sketches. And I'm going to share these 3 sketches with you. These came out to recognize that none of these options is going to be satisfactory to everyone. And there are going to be some things that people like about one, and even some things that they have reservations about that very same one. So the first sketch would, as Bishop mentioned, retain the current language in the Book of Discipline and place a high value on accountability. Now, the current language of our Book of Discipline does not permit openly gay persons to be ordained and serve as ministers in United Methodist churches. Does not openly gay practicing persons to be ordained and serve in our churches, and does not permit our clergy to perform same-sex unions or for our churches to host a same-sex marriage. That's the current language in the Book of Discipline. Sketch 1 would affirm that language, would retain that language, and place a high value on accountability for those who feel they cannot abide by that language in the Book of Discipline. Some strengths of this sketch. It affirms the church's current stance. It says this is what we said and this is what we say. It doesn't require any changes to the language in the Book of Discipline. And it provides clarity for the church about where the church is in terms of how we might include openly gay persons in the life of our church. Some of the concerns that are expressed by both progressives and conservatives from this sketch. There is likely to be continued disobedience in terms of this language. There will likely continue to be openly gay practicing persons who will pursue ordination in the United Methodist Church. And there will likely continue to be clergy and churches that wish to perform and host same-sex marriages in our denomination. And so for those who are concerned about church trials and clergy trials and the upset, this sketch doesn't always seem to provide them a way forward, because the sense is that there's going to continue to be disobedience in the church with this current sketch. Sketch number 2 would remove the restrictive language in the Book of Discipline, place a high value on contextualization. That means sort of adapting your practice to the local context, while protecting those whose conscience will not allow them to perform same-gender weddings or ordain LGBTQ persons. Some of the strengths of this sketch. This sketch would give persons the freedom to practice ministry however they are called in their context. It eliminates church trials, and it allows for the church to focus on other issues. There are some who say, we just want to be in ministry. We're tired of fighting. We're tired of the dispute. Just let us be in ministry. Some of the concerns about this. This could lead to division in local congregations, because ultimately the local congregation would determine whether or not they are open to having or allowing same-sex marriages in their local church. And it could create tension between clergy and churches who are not on the same side on this issue. Another concern is, how would we protect those who would conscientiously disagree with the context where they are? So if you are a conservative or a traditional in a progressive environment, how would the church make sure that your conscience is being protected if we just remove the language? What mechanisms will be in place? Or if you are a progressive in a context where the traditional view holds sway, how would your conscience be protected, and how would you be in ministry in ways that allow you to truly be in ministry? The third sketch identifies a unified core of shared doctrine and services, while also creating different branches that have clearly identified values such as accountability, contextualization, and justice. This is the most complicated model, but the idea here is that we would sort of organize the church in a confederated kind of way, that we would remain a United Methodist Church, but that we would have different branches into which we would find ourselves and sort ourselves out, whether it would be a progressive branch or a traditional branch or a moderate branch. And Bishop Ken Carter, who is one of the presiders of the Commission on the Way Forward, the moderators from the Commission on the Way Forward, shared this example. And he said, we are already part of a body that looks something like this. The World Methodist Council is in some ways a shared Methodist body of all the Methodist traditions in the world. And within the World Methodist Council, you have churches like the Methodist Church in Southern Africa, which is very progressive on human sexuality, and the Methodist Church in Costa Rica, which is very traditional with respect to human sexuality. And yet they find themselves as part of the same body. And this is the idea that Ken Carter shared, is that this would be a sort of an umbrella organization that would contain the ministries and the shared doctrine of a United Methodist Church, but allow for differentiation within different branches of that church. Some of the strengths of this. This is a new way of being church. It's a new understanding, a new model of unity and what it means to be a unified church. It would allow those of us who disagree on this issue to continue to be and work together, to be in ministry together, to find common purpose and shared purpose in ministry. Some of the concerns are, this is by far the most complex. I haven't heard anybody explain to me how exactly this might happen in terms of the details. What it would take to make this dramatic a shift in terms of our structure of what it means to be the church. In February, the Commission offered 2 models or sketches. The first, there we go, is what they call a one church model. The one church model gives churches the room they need to maximize the presence of United Methodist Witness in as many places in the world as possible. And this one church model provides a generous unity that gives conferences, churches, and pastors the flexibility to uniquely reach their missional context in relation to human sexuality without changing the connectional nature of the United Methodist Church. This places a high value on contextualization. It places a high value on allowing local churches and pastors and local settings to say, this is how we feel called to be a ministry with and alongside those who are openly gay or lesbian. The second model is grounded in a unified core while also creating different branches that have clearly defined values such as accountability, contextualization, and justice. And the 5 United States jurisdictions were broken up into regions in the United States. The 5 jurisdictions will be replaced by 3 connectional conferences, each covering the whole country based on theology and perspective on LGBTQ ministry. That is a progressive conference, a conservative or traditional conference, and a contextual or moderated conference. Now, several comments that I want to share with you about these models and these sketches. All of this is preliminary. All of it. Nothing has been decided. No vote has been taken. Nothing has been determined ahead of time for any of us on behalf of any of us. I share these with you because this is the information that we have from the Commission on the Way Forward and the Council of Bishops. The bishops are meeting in a week and a half to 2 weeks to basically take all this information and then distill that and propose a way forward for our denomination for the General Conference of 2019. We are in a very preliminary stage right now in terms of this conversation, and so I just want to make that very clear. We're not going to decide anything today. We're not going to determine anything today other than just what the sense of the body is here in the New Mexico Annual Conference. And so when we look at these sketches and look at these models, for the purposes of our conversation today, I want us to make sure that we are having the widest and broadest conversation as possible. And so in that sense, everything that I've just shared with you, the 3 sketches, the 2 models, the updated models from February, all of that is on the table for us for conversation today. Because in this conversation, I feel it's best for us to have the widest and broadest conversation as possible because, folks, we've never done this before. Have you ever sat in a room with this many people to talk about this issue that divides the church? So let's have the widest, broadest conversation possible.